I'm having a pretty shit lead up to Christmas. My personal incapacity payment application was rejected, and my employment support allowance appeal application was rejected. I know this will delight a lot of my trolls and naysayers, but they're not really the people I worry about necessarily. I know I have a lot of more conservative and libertarian followers to whom I am their token sane liberal or token sane socialist, and those I do worry about. It's impossible not to worry about people's opinion of you when you move into things like this, when you look for help. I would advise other people doing it to ignore all of that and to just get whatever they can to help themselves out, but somehow when it comes to myself, I don't feel the same way. There is a lot of societal shame and pressure upon people to carry on, to pick themselves up, and all the rest of it. It's not really very fair on people. And it's difficult, especially when you have an invisible illness, like I do. I have depression and anxiety, and I know that doesn't necessarily come across when people meet me in person or when they see what I do online, but online is a safe, controllable environment to me. And when you see me at events or whatever, I've been building up to that for weeks, sometimes months, of anxiety and, to the point even of nausea and so on. So I want to relay my story, and those of you out there, particularly those who are more libertarian or conservative or anarcho-capitalist or archly capitalist persuasion, I want you to listen, and I want you to tell me whether I deserve the help that I'm asking for. So, originally when I left college, left art college, because that's where I went to start with. Originally I wanted to be an illustrator or to work in comics or something, but there just wasn't the encouragement there, and I guess I wasn't really good enough thinking about it, but that part of that's because the encouragement wasn't there. I looked around a few universities, but there was nothing really there, and my brother and my mother needed my help and assistance. It was better for me to be around there than to go to the opposite end of the country to a course that didn't fit what I actually wanted to do and to pay for all of it and everything. So I stuck around, and I tried for a while to make the writing and the game design work for a couple of years, I guess. And it didn't really. I landed a couple of bits of freelance work here and there, but nothing really took off. This was kind of a bit before the whole electronic publishing thing really kind of took off and exploded. I remember the first PDF I ever saw was a sort of expansion errata to a Heavy Gear book, and it was clunky and it was big and it took ages to download on dial-up and all the rest of it. So the options weren't particularly there at the time to do what I try to do now. So eventually I had to give in, and I had to get a regular job, and that was basically just data entry, transferring files from an outdated, like pre-DOS computer system to a new, shiny, updated Windows system for a company. And that saved me up enough money to visit the States, to meet my partner and to save a kind of nest egg up ready for moving out and moving her over to the UK. And I was just doing a shitty, data entry job that didn't require a brain very much. But it was a good experience, I suppose, learning to work in an office environment and all the rest of it. Following that, I got a job doing support for a recruitment company. A company that provided software for recruitment agents. This was a shit job, really. The company wasn't that great, but I was working with my friends and I was earning a decent salary, and when I was taken on, it was with the idea that I would use my graphical skills and so on to help as they moved into more of a sort of web application area, and eventually that did happen. But the clientele wasn't necessarily there, the software wasn't necessarily there, the company had two competing projects, and our one was relatively understaffed and underfinanced and all the rest of it. And as it turned out, after a few years, the boss was embezzling. And this coincided with the dot-com crash, so we all lost our jobs basically, and because it was a bunch of friends working at the same place and several of us were living in the same house and all lost our jobs at the same time, I ended up having to move back home with my partner, living out of one room in my mum's house for, I guess it was about 2 years. And I was unemployed all that time because my skills were, at that time, were technical and internet and web design. I'm not really up on that anymore. It's a skill set I've let slide, but there were no jobs in those kind of areas, and I was overqualified for what was around. So everything I applied for, people kind of canted their heads, looked at me and wondered why the hell I was applying, and knew that I wouldn't stick around, so nobody wanted to hire me. So I was out of work for about 18 months. After 12 months, they make you do this special course, which was a complete waste of time because I already knew how to write CVs, how to conduct myself in interviews, and the people I was around doing this course were long-term unemployed who were things like alcoholics, drug addicts, criminals. One guy was drinking through the whole thing out of cans. Another guy brought a knife to the thing and threatened somebody there and was chucked out. And I just realised that this was just going to go on, and staying on unemployment benefit was getting to be like a full-time job. Applying, reapplying, applying for jobs that you knew were going to reject you. Being forced to jump through all these pointless hoops, which me and the staff and everyone else involved all knew were pointless. The work just wasn't there. So I did what my libertarian and conservative and capitalist type followers might think is a great and good thing. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, so to speak. From a small loan of £500, I built myself a business. By this point, PDFs and electronic publishing and so on was starting to take off. I managed to, between freelance work and self-publishing, make just barely enough to get by. I felt like I was contributing, I was doing a lot of work, I felt I was producing good stuff, and I was doing okay. And it was building slowly but surely. I was getting a good reputation as a reliable person to hire, to write and do things. I was doing stuff that I thought was interesting and was fun, and I was building up and doing well. So I built myself a reasonable business, and it was on course to continue to build and continue to be better. Then around 2007, I had my first bout of really serious depression. And that kind of knocked my legs out from under me, knocked the business back. damaged my reputation for reliability because my work quality suffered and the timing to get done all suffered. I began to slip. And I battled through. To start with, I refused to accept there was depression. I thought it was something like exhaustion or chronic fatigue syndrome or yuppie flu or something like that. I didn't see how it could be depression. Looking back now, I can see I'd had episodes at other times in my life, exacerbated by various things that went on, bad breakups, parents divorcing, stuff like that. But this time there was no real reason that I could see for it, so I refused to accept that I was depressed. And ever since then I've been struggling with it, and it has gradually gotten worse. And no matter what medication I take, I have severe side effects. Like even the one that I'm on at the moment, which is the best one I've ever been on, I get regular, really painful headaches from the drug. It disrupts my sleep. It causes hyperlibido, which isn't as much fun as it sounds. It causes concentration problems. And it's a constant battle to decide whether it's better to be medicated and less depressed, or more depressed but perhaps capable of doing a little bit more work. You know, you combine this with other things that have gone on, such as the battles I got engaged in over free expression and so on, and all the bullshit that was directed at me about that. You know, that definitely made things worse and further damaged my business, though there was a short-term boost from people who agreed with me. But I struggled on for 10 years trying to work through, refusing to apply for benefits or anything, with things just getting worse and worse and slipping and sliding more and more. This last bout of severe depression has lasted about 4 months, during which I have been essentially unable to work past the absolute basics or to do much of anything else. These videos, believe it or not, are really quite low effort. And I enjoy doing them. They're kind of recreational, they're kind of therapeutic, especially videos like this where I get to spill my guts all over the internet, you know, and talk to people. And it's easier than social interactions and things like that, which I find incredibly difficult, even with people I've known for years. I see my friends for gaming sessions about every month and a half. And that knocks me out for at least 2 days afterwards, causes me enormous anxiety. You know, even with people I've known for years who are my best friends, who know absolutely everything about me and are massively accepting and wonderful to me, I still have these problems. So after 10 years of struggling and barely getting by and relying unfairly on family and friends and so on to help me along, I finally caved against all the shame and everything. And knowing that the government has made applying for assistance harder and harder and worse over the years, and having campaigned against it, you know, I now have a new appreciation of just how shitty that this all is. But anyway, after all that time, I finally gave in and I asked for some help. And during all that time, I have been paying my national insurance, I've been paying my tax. Yeah, so I'm entitled to assistance, aren't I? I would think. But am I? Well, what's your opinion? You know, I feel that I have tried to make this work. I have tried to battle through. I have tried at least 5 different drugs to try and help me out. I have been to 2 therapists and a psychiatrist. I'm currently entangled in the Mind charity for assistance, who help me with my PIP and ESA applications. I think I have done everything that is humanly possible to get by, and it's not enough. I need help. There's a couple of areas remaining which are stresses in my life that trigger my depression and anxiety the most, and one of those is money and feeling like I'm not contributing, not providing, not helping. And this is a way of dealing with that. Yeah, and I've weighed for weeks whether the additional stress of the shame of needing help is better or worse than the stress of that not contributing, not helping, of life being more difficult than it needs to be. So do I deserve help? Yeah, and most people who are asking for assistance that I've run into, that I've encountered, are people like me. They don't want to. They find it an affront to their pride to have to go crawling for help. Most people aren't cheats. You know, I was entangled in the JSA thing, you know, the out of work system, the unemployment system for nearly 2 years, and in all that time I encountered precisely one person who was an actual cheat. One. And when it comes to disability, I know nobody who is a cheat. Everyone I've run into is someone like me who has tried and has just run out of cope. So what do we do in these situations? If I was well, I would be a fully productive member of society. If I get this assistance, I might be able to crawl out of this hole more easily. You know, I'm just asking for help to get back on my feet, really, to get some solid ground under me. I'll include a link at the bottom of some partially redacted letters that, drafts of letters that are sent on the first stage of these appeals, so you can see completely unalloyed how shit I am, how bad my situation is. And then you can judge for yourself whether you think someone in a situation like me with the problems that I have deserves assistance, deserves help, deserves a bit of money to help them get by, sort themselves out, pick themselves up, be more productive because there's that security there. Just the removal of one more stress and strain on your life. And keep in mind that there are many, many other people like me with invisible physical illnesses, with invisible mental illnesses, and the system that we encounter is not set up to deal with our issues. It's not set up to assess our issues, and that until very recently you had to pay to phone the lines to get your appeals in motion, that any payments you have had are suspended while you appeal, while you ask, while you try to get reassessed. And that they, until recently, had targets to reject 80% of applicants, no matter what their doctors have said, or whatever else. Does that sound like a fair system? Does that sound like we're taking care of the poorest and most vulnerable in our society? There's people much worse off than me in similar situations or worse situations, and we're failing them. And while I was already aware of all this whole situation has given me a new appreciation of just how bad it is, because it is way worse than even my cynical and pessimistic mind had imagined. Zang.